Can you believe what it turned into from what it was when they came into your hot dog stand and made you the offer?
From the vision I had to telling Danny Lee you should start a sports station instead of a jazz station, which he was planning on doing, or country, to him implementing, see, an idea is only an idea until somebody's got the stones, like Danny Lee did, to invest the money that he did. He had the apparatus. He had the sales staff. Everybody was under one roof. I remember walking out the door of during a commercial, and Tina Turner bumps into me. She was on her way to the other side of the building to talk to the XRT folks and to hear the Cubs on the station now. From where it went, a tremendous, and it changed my life. It changed a lot of people's lives, and it just is gratifying. I mean, when I hear the station or anybody at the station, I was happy for Matt Spiegel when he got to do the ball game, the Cub game. I remember when Matt and I did Baseball City. I said, I got an idea for a baseball segment. And we had Jefferson Starship song, We Built This City, as our theme. As I wanted to give him a segment. So it's been great. A lot of great people still there from when I was there, like Herb Lawrence, and I know Jay Zawalski just left, but I keep track of everybody. And, it's just good to see everybody doing well.
I was reading an old profile on you from 1998, I think it was, in the Chicago Reader.
Oh, yeah.
I learned some things. I remembered some things, and your life. You're making the movie, and I want to hear about that. But I feel like there were so many fork in the road moments for you, Mike, where so many different things could have happened. You were damn close to going to Vietnam, and maybe none of this happens for you. I'm wondering how many times you go back and think about fork in the road moments like that, and how your life ended up.
Well, the first thing I did is when I was supposed to go to Vietnam, I remember we getting the orders. Half the guys were going to Germany, and the other half were going to Vietnam. And I had orders to go to Long Binh Dung. I was an MP. So yeah, I think about it every day. I mean, and 57,000 people. I knew people that died in that war. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. I married a woman that is loyal as the day is long. I have never met anybody say they didn't like her. She got very involved. We were very involved with the station back in the day. We were friends with everybody. And it's just turned out to be a dream. Danny Lee changed my life by giving me a high school dropout, Dan, which I don't think today many would get that opportunity. But I did broker time for $200 an hour. Then I brought in a talented producer named Tom Couch. And I did that for 2-3 years, and I just did a thing called the NFL Handicap Show in 1990. So I thought gambling radio, wagering radio like I do now would have been in vogue already, but it was never legalized until recently. So that opens up a whole new ball game and adds on things to a sports radio market that needs content right now, I think.
Yeah, it needs content, needs money, right? Like for you guys, where there was the restaurant, like the bar scene or car dealerships, right? Like you car dealerships were like the bread and butter for you guys. Now it's gambling money.
I drove up in a Cadillac one day, and I remember, I don't know if it was Jiggets or Jesse Rogers saying, "Wow, you bought the car." I go, "No, I cut a deal."
Course.
And it was with Solozzi Edelson at the time, and I knew him. I said, "You want to drive my car?" So, yeah, and then all of a sudden everybody started getting these deals. I got clothing deals. I mean, it was Dodge City, 92 to 2003, 2004. Things started to change. Things have changed now, where you guys got to be a little bit more careful now. We all do, because I'm still on terrestrial radio, being very fortunate to do that. But you got to. We used to just pull the gun out of the holster and fire, and now I think you got to wait a little bit almost, and it's become that kind of environment. And I give all the stations credit for still putting out pretty good material when I know there's so much that you would like to do, or any of us would like to do, but because of now you're hearing comedians saying they can't even do their acts. There's a little bit of I guess, less expectations for bits and stuff like that now, and more about content in the sports.
Yeah, it's a different environment. Certainly, you guys. Right. It was the Wild West. I can't believe some of the things you guys got away with back in the day. Frankly, can you like? I mean, at the time, it must have seemed normal, and there wasn't really much. I mean, maybe there was accountability for it, but it seems like to me a completely crazy thing that you guys were able to get away with.
It was. I think everybody was like that. And I think it started with Dahl.
Yeah.
Went, on to Stern, the Loop. But in sports, we took it to another level. But we also, I think because of the antics, Danny, and because of the stuff that put us on the board, we didn't have social media. So if we had social media, we might have been off after 2 years.
Yep.
We had 3, 4, 5 stations. And anytime we did something, the very stations that we were hurting, TV and print, they didn't like us because we brought this whole new deal in and we changed the game. But we would get all this publicity from it. But, I think that's what's lost is that me and Jiggis, for instance, and I can't speak for Danny and Terry or Tommy Scher, but I think I know what they would say. We showed up every day. I never missed a day in 16 years. I came to play every minute. I think the listeners knew that whether they agreed or not. The same with Dan. We had a good chemistry, as you know, which is important. We had a great team. I think for music guys to decide not to do a jazz or country station and to then say, we're all music guys, but we better do this sports radio thing. We're going to do the sports radio thing. You're going to listen to that goofy hot dog guy? Yeah, I am. Because I went home, says Danny Lee to me, when we did this 3-hour deal with him where he told us a lot of stuff. He went home, Dan, and he says, I talked to this Mike North, to his wife, Karen, and she goes, yeah. He goes, I bought the Bulldog editions. I want to check something out, the Tribune and the Sun-Times, the Sundays. He goes to the entertainment section. He opens it up. There's 4 or 5 prevalent ads, a couple little ones also. He goes to the sports section, which at the time was male-dominated. It wasn't as cross-section as it was. He goes there, there's like 30 ads in each paper. So right then and there, he said, I make more money off this than I will off that. So the next Monday, he comes in, and they're all up in arms. We don't know anything about sports radio. And Danny Lee said, you better learn. We better learn. And they made the best hires of any. It was the first all-purpose sports station. WFAN in New York, they had Imus in the morning. They had a couple shows. I told Chernoff that. Mark Chernoff, I go, you didn't have a full station. We started with Tom Scher in the morning, and then we were only 3 shows. So we were the little engine that could, and now look what it turned into.
Mike North with us, talking, just telling stories to celebrate 30 years of the Score, all 30th anniversary content on behalf of EOC Audio. Yeah, how close? You and Jigs, you became stars, and Chernoff approaches you to take the act to New York, right? Jimmy DeCastro approached you to go to MVP, and that was early on at the Score. Who knows what would have happened to the station if they would have lost you guys at that time? How close were you to leaving?
Well, I'll never forget Jiggets after the Ditka show that we did. He says to me, I got to tell you something tomorrow. But before we go, we got to go to O'Hare tomorrow. I go, what are you talking about? After the show, a guy from WFAN, the head guy's flying in. I go, you're kidding me. Now, yeah, I used to pick paper in the park. I got some guy from New York, the president, the head guy coming in to see me. Come on now. Nobody's flying in to see us, Jigs. He goes, we are. We go to O'Hare. And Mark Chernoff made us a huge offer, a 6-figure offer. I go back to Danny Lee. And I said, Danny, I got an offer. Jigs got an offer. And it's this. He checked it out. He matched it, and that was the beginning. And then Jimmy DeCastro and Larry Wirtz approached me. But the thing with that was that they only wanted me at the time. And I said, well, that's not going to work. I said, I'll go back and I'll tell Danny Lee. But I told Danny they want me for this much money. But we got to have Jigs. We can't do it. And that's what ended up happening. That's how I got the next deal. Then the final deal, is I flew to Potomac, Maryland, because I got sick of listening to two parties talking to each other, and I was in the middle. Westinghouse and Dan Mason at the time, or whatever. And then I flew to Potomac, and I met Dan, and I signed a big deal from there. So it's been a dream life. I love everything that's happened. I've been sober for 15 years.
Good for you.
I love everybody that's associated with the Score and with radio, AM 1000. I work over there now. Great people, as you guys know. We've lost a couple people this year. Jeff Dickerson, of course, my good friend Les Grobstein, and that was a toughie. The Les Grobstein one was a shocker. I woke up and I saw it, and I basically couldn't believe it. But it's been a tough year for folks, so we're all fortunate to be here. And as you get old, Danny, it's one of these days, you know what you're going to say in 20 years? I don't know if I want to grind anymore, but you stay there as long as you can, pal.
Thank you. Listen, I love it now. It is a grind, but we're radio guys. We love it, and I'm not making what you guys made in the heyday or whatever, but it's a great living and a great life.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
you get insurance, and you got all this other stuff. And you know what? You're good at what you do. You had a goal. You made it. That's what I did. I was picking paper in the park in 1982 with the Park District. And I go home one day and I tell B, I really screwed myself. Where are we going? What are we doing? She goes, what do you mean? I go, I'm picking paper in the park. That's it. I'm a high school dropout. She goes, well, we should maybe go into business and stuff like that. But at night I'd mop the floor and listen to Chet Kopic. And I'd say, I can do this. I can do this. I know I can do this, but I got to get a chance. And my wife used to tell me, how are you going to do it? I'd say, well, I don't know, but I can do it. And she always has been by my side. And she said she was the first and only one that believed in me fully. So it's always good to have a person that believes in you.
I wanted to also add, I love a good radio feud. You were in a few of them. Do you have, whether it's McCaskey, whether it's Wirtz, whether it's Ozzy, do you have a favorite radio confrontation in your career?
I think the most important one was with McCaskey, because I got to tell him exactly how I felt and how the fans felt. I also love Ozzy. Ozzy called up and had the guts to lay it out there. I was worried about the license at the time, but they were all great. I mean, look, I'm so blessed. I drank with Sinatra and I ate beef sandwiches with Robert Plant. Who can say that? I mean, I hung out with Don Rickles, became a friend. We took the shows to Vegas. We went to Sarasota and Michael Jordan, the most surreal scene I've ever seen, Danny. Michael Jordan walking into the Sarasota lunchroom at the old complex in a White Sox uniform. The 6'6" lean guy, greatest basketball player in the world, greatest competitor I've ever seen. And he walking through that. I mean, just so many great memories, so many wonderful memories, and they're not over. So I just keep plugging away, and that's the way it is. I love radio. I grew up loving radio, whether it was, Wally Phillips, from Wally Phillips in the 60s, Larry Lujak, Steve Dahl, Dave Baum. I mean, I got to work with Dave Baum. My dad used to listen to Dave Baum, and he ended up at the Score. So Walter Payton became one of my best friends, Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus. I mean, I'm a kid. I met Doug Buffone when I was in first year high school waiting outside for him to come out after practice, and I end up working with him. So it's just been the 82 story. I'm picking paper in Grant Park, and in 92, a miracle of miracles. I'm hosting the Bulls celebration at the same spot where I was picking the paper after the Pope had been there. So it's just been a charmed life. Everything, from doom to joy, just like that.
You making that movie?
Well, you know what? It's a pain in the ass. Can I say that?
Sure.
It's a pain because we were on schedule, and then COVID hit, and the money raised and everything else. So you know what? I'm not going to say look. I want to make the movie, but it's just been so difficult since COVID.
Sure.
And plus raising funds. I want to make the movie about the Score. I think it's the best story, I think, media-wise, there's ever been in this town. I said it on a podcast with George Hoffman. After the Bulls in the 90s, I think the Score in the 90s was the second most important franchise because it changed the way that things were covered in this town. And to a certain extent, that's the way it still is.
Yeah, the media landscape has certainly changed, so I understand what you say to a certain extent. But when the Score is at its best,
social media, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, but I listen. We like to think, Cubs, Sox, Bulls, Blackhawks, Bears. We like to think of the Score as that sixth franchise in town.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Look, sports radio. We needed it. We had a nighttime show at Chet Topic. I remember Rich King had a show on the weekends on BBM. Most of the shows were on weekends. So it was just a no-brainer to me because at the time there were already, I think there's over, thousands of stations now, but at the time there was only like 12. You had WFAN in New York. You had San Diego. You had Denver. You had Philly that had a sports station. But they were very sparse. I think Kansas City might have had one before us. So I thought it was something that was needed, and from that, a lot of people have made a lot of money, and I hope the money does come back someday the way it was, because you know what, that means everybody's making money.
Yeah. Listen, I do too, but it's still pretty damn good for me.
Hell yeah. Hey, listen, I used to make ice for the Park District. It beats being out at 2 o'clock in the morning making an ice rink, at Sam Leone Beach on Toohey and Sheridan. You know what I'm saying?
Thankfully, I don't, but I can relate.